Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of We Need to Talk. This is episode 408 or 407. I don't even remember. It's so many different episodes, so many different vibes, so many different topics. You know, we're I must say I'm definitely excited, to be continuing on this journey, being able to exercise this level of just discussion and connection and uplifting and providing strategies and things like that. And I appreciate everybody who's been tuning in, who's been watching via replay, watching live, supporting, the content, supporting the broadcast, and I'm always in a space of expanding. So there's definitely a whole lot more to come. But wanted to just send out appreciation to everybody who's been a part of this process. And this movement, because again, like I always emphasize, this is something that I am working to create and instill in as many people as possible. This is a movement to not only realize that happiness exists, but to be able to achieve that in all areas that count, all areas that matter to you, and all areas that you deserve to see them in, and to really be able to see the tangible representation of things that you have sought after, things that you have desired for long periods of time, for as long as you can remember. These things are very much attainable. And, I try to put together a comprehensive approach so that nothing is left untapped, and that you can get everything, get everything you deserve and everything that you want by becoming and awakening the essence of those elements first in order to attract them to you. Because as we know, like attracts like, and similar things connect. And so just becoming that powerful energy source and, creating an internal unconditional happiness mechanism for yourself. So all that said, tonight is about business versus personal, and should you get into business with somebody who you have a personal relationship with. So the reason I'm bringing this up here in the dating sphere is because the rules still apply. When it comes to platonic relationships, when it comes to romantic relationships, these things still apply. These questions still apply. It's still something that is a question. And because tonight, shout out to you, Dawn. What's going on? Tonight we are discussing this particular topic because of the recent developments of the Joe Budden podcast. And for those of you who may be unfamiliar, Joe Budden, rapper, or former rapper, somebody who has transcended the hip hop industry and found his way through different relationships, obviously public, but also reality shows and different ventures and things like that, to find himself into the podcast space. I believe it was around 5-6 years ago that he started out on that with two of his friends. Obviously a personal relationship. And the reason the show worked with such longevity, one of the reasons is the chemistry they had together as friends. I think one of the downfalls, though, could have been because due to the friendship between them, there over time there began to be a sense of entitlement for maybe more compensation, certain levels of ownership, certain information on certain elements of older contracts, previous contracts, things like that. And there's a lot of elements to it, but as we find ourselves here, as far as when you follow the headlines, you'll see that that has ended, and he has fired his co-hosts and things like that, or co-host slash friends. And right now, the future looks bleak for that ever to reconcile itself, because right before they had a disagreement, and if you follow, you'll see there was other replacement co-hosts for several weeks because of whatever was going on. We didn't, as an audience, we didn't know what was going on, and then they came back together and reunited on the podcast to discuss things. I could see a lot of holding of their tongues. They didn't really want to get too far into different things, and then thinking that everything was back on track. At least so I thought, and I don't watch every episode, but then to hear the news that he had fired his friend slash co-host, and so that situation took a turn, took a dive, and begs the question, romantically now taking a turn, romantic relationships, should it be done? Is it something that should be, should you go into create a new business with someone you're in a relationship with? And shout out to everybody who came through on the podcast, the Clubhouse discussion tonight. Definitely was a really great discussion on Clubhouse, and to just the ins and outs and what can arise, what can come up when you're with a partner. Let's say you both have individual businesses and individual entrepreneurs. Is there overlap? Is there one helping another? Are you starting an actual business from the ground up together? When should you do that? Should you ever do that? What are the stipulations? What should be, thought about? So when thinking about going into business with a romantic partner, first thing we want to address or to understand is that if you think about marriage, marriage is a contract, prenups are a contract. So if you're going into business and you make the choice to do so, you got to follow those terms. One major thing to focus on is to make sure that the terms are agreed upon, and that you are someone who is willing to take the highs and the lows of what you agree to as a partnership. The same way we would want our partners and significant others, including spouses, to honor the contract, honor the vows. When you marry somebody, you want them to honor the stipulations that were that this agreement or this connection was made legitimate under. So as long as we are going into business knowing that this is what we're doing, this is what we are responsible for, and that it doesn't infect our relationship in a negative way or affect our relationship in a negative way, and that we are dedicating ourselves to making the business grow the same way you would jointly make sure a child, you're going to bring a child into the world, make sure that thrives. Anything you go into jointly, you want to make sure it thrives, but not to the detriment of the relationship. And the next thing is, you really want to make sure when it comes to the fact of or the question of going into business with a significant other, I'm somebody, even outside of business, I'm somebody who says, when I'm assessing a mate or dating, figuring somebody out, I look for elements that are already present before we start to get serious, before we start to take off or have some sort of trajectory together. I want to know who you were What were your habits? What were your goals? What were your attitudes? What were your perspectives? What were your values and priorities and character traits before you met me? Because, I'm not going to date for potential, nor am I going to put myself in a business situation where I hope you fulfill your end of the bargain, or I hope you carry the elements of somebody who can be a good business partner, right? So on a romantic level, I look for self-awareness. I look for a desire to grow. I look for accountability, not as something that I want to instill in you or teach you how to do, something that is already current, already a part of the fabric of who you are, right? Same thing in business. If I'm considering going into business with a partner, I want to make sure certain elements are already there, right? How's the drive? How's the discipline? How is the, focus and the flexibility of focus? And what I mean by that is there's going to be times where you have to focus on business, or we have to focus on business. And then there's going to be times where we have to put all of that aside, turn the phones on, do not disturb, and focus on us, right? So you want to make sure your partner has that flexibility of focus, to be able to say, and also those boundaries to be able to not make it all business and not make the relationship all relationship and not focus on taking care of the, getting the job done, getting the goals accomplished, making sure that the business thrives, right? Or our own individual businesses start to thrive. Because again, another thing I would look for is how well do you balance when there are multiple things that need attending to, right? Do you balance well, or does the structure crumble? Are you able to, work and do business and maybe find ways to mesh business, right? And one thing that's cool for me, is, let's say you have a business that entails camera, live streams in front of the mic in front of the camera, things like that. There's ways to incorporate quality time and business at the same time. There's, depending on the nature of the business, you can incorporate elements of quality time into what you do. I do know certain podcasts and things like that where they're actually a couple, and part of their business model is, them having relationship discussions together. They're both co-hosts and things like that. So there's certain ways, to mesh the two, because it helps with not being in a situation where you're doing way too much and there's no time for you to actually connect with your partner. And not to say that should substitute for quality time. There should be quality time that's strictly dedicated, right? But if you can get a little bit of both, if you can get a little bit of quality time and a little bit of business and mesh that thing together, it's a positive thing. It's a great thing to have. And I think that's a major part of what to look for, in the process, So when we're talking about elements and we're talking about character traits, you want to, how is your partner's work ethic before they met you, right? So is there evidence of them with a high level of work ethic, being goal driven, right? Can they dedicate themselves to something? Do they give up when it gets difficult? Do they fall off? Do they present a lot of excuses? Do they have a defeatist mindset? Are they scared of success? Are they scared of failure? Or based on as much as you can find out in this dating process, how much do you know about their ability, almost like simulations or just reference points of, okay, if we're going to go into business now, but you have all of these certain traits and qualities that don't connect to the huge undertaking that we're about to be a part of, then maybe it's a no. And I would argue too that if you find some of these poor traits, they're likely in other areas as well. So if you're thinking about it, but you don't want to go into business with your potential partner, or your actual partner, romantic partner, because of laziness or poor work ethic or not following through or procrastination, then are these, and I discussed this on Clubhouse too, are these elements that you want in the romantic side too? Like, are they, are you'll find yourself exposing a lot of areas by even just asking this question. If you do have somebody that you may be dating or maybe considering, business, or just thinking about it in general. Maybe this is way in the future. Maybe you're not dating anybody now, but these are things to think of, because it's an additional partnership. You're dating as romantic partners. You add the business element onto it. It's more partnership, so it requires not only the individual character traits, but the blending, the connection, the connectivity, the communication, the ability to work well together. Some of those things, those interview questions, right? Or when you have people do references for you for a future job you're looking to get, on that reference sheet. Do you work well on a team, or as a part of a team? Are you a team player? Or do you get hostile in team environments? Do you become over competitive? Do you become, do you have insecurities that may show up and that may influence the fabric of the relationship, right? What we have to look at the attributes, and we have to look at past history, and we have to look at the time that we have to observe these things. Because if you don't have all of this information, you need to get it. You don't need to act without it, because acting without it can prove to be, very much detrimental, whether it's financially. And if we're being honest, we've heard a lot of times too, as far as why marriages fail, and then finances being a part of it. So, this very venture, if explored too soon, explored prematurely, or explored without adequate information, can be the downfall. This is an extra thing, but it can be the actual downfall if this thing isn't played right. And as you've seen with, Joe Budden podcast, and something that has greatness and has a great potential can have a huge downfall, to where in that downfall and in that snowball effect, the business connection and relationship and the friendship get rolled up into one, and the whole thing takes a dive. So you could lose your whole relationship based on an extra business partnership that was not a necessity to begin with. But it can expose a lot at the same time. And information is power if it's utilized right. So sometimes, even just business, all these different things coming into play can be indicative of the potential, or just, certain mistakes in mindset, certain lack of preparation when it comes to you trying to, you're choosing power, right? There is power in choosing. And if you're choosing to bring someone into your life physically, romantically, and then adding another layer business wise that further interconnects you, you don't want to create that that closer and that tighter, and that legal interconnection with somebody who you haven't fully realized who they are and what they're comprised of, and what they're able to do, and what is self-generated without you, before you. What qualities were in place? What evidence do you have to suggest that this person will treat it the right way, and that they will be able to create certain compartments so that if you fall into argument back and forth, uh, that it does not then crumble the business or make them want to sabotage the business, or that person doesn't have, it's the level of self-control, the level of self-discipline, that goes a long way, that we need to recognize as well. So it's something that, it's about the traits, and the connection. And I believe that it can work if the foundation is right. Same thing with a romantic relationship, partnership, right? The foundation is correct. The goals are outlined. The communication is on point. The individual and group traits. You can be great as an individual, but once you get on the team, you're not listening to nobody, you're not communicating, you're operating still as an individual. I've seen this in relationships where certain people, single so long, you get in a relationship and you're still acting single. And you got to kind of reel them in, like, all right, we in something, right? We're in this relationship, right? So just because there's the individual ability doesn't mean that will translate into a team scenario when we're talking about business. So just like an interview, tell me about a time that you worked on a team, and how did that go? Tell me about an experience where you partnered up, or you did something with, you know what I mean? And just see if there's any of that, any sort of evidence and experiences that you can kind of discuss it, or at least have a reference point for, because that's extra work. We got to understand it's not a necessity. Relationships, you don't need to go into business with your partner or whatever, but if you do, it's extra. It's something extra, but it can have extra benefits as well. You know what I'm saying? It can be a positive thing. It can be something that strengthens the connection. When you have victories, it's next level when you have a victory with somebody that you love, and you can celebrate not only your win but our win, right? You know what I'm saying? And to really go out and celebrate and honor what we have done together as a couple, and kind of just highlight and go over what it took to get there, and the ups and downs, and the communication, and standing strong in between points where we were having difficult energy between us, but still got the deal done, still got the goals done. And I mentioned this too on Clubhouse. Sometimes, even in situations where you and your partner are in business, and maybe had an argument right before something was happening or whatever, and you still got to take care of business. Sometimes, even if you're mad at your partner, by working together constructively on a goal, on a common goal, putting the BS to the side, and locking arms with that person, and getting your hands dirty, and bringing those goals to accomplishment level, sometimes that energy of working together can dissipate the issue, the original issue. You may work through that anger or that disconnect by working in connection, if that makes sense. So there's all kind of benefits, and there's all kind of learning points and objectives, when you can learn what it's like to just work in conjunction with somebody and know that they have your back. Trust fall exercises, all of those cool, like, little, stuff you see on TV, and retreat stuff and all of that kind of stuff. Like that type of thing is important, because that partner, again, trust is major in relationships anyway. But on a business side, there's bigger goals at play. There's finances at play There's different work levels at play, and there's more to be concerned about. But if the connection is strong, the elements are strong, the character traits are strong, the attributes are strong, the intimacy, communication, all these different things are strong, and the vision is shared, and both parties agree to that vision, and are both motivated, sometimes by each other, then that's really what we're after. That's what we're after. So that's been my 2 cents, my piece. Shout out to Erica. What's going on? Erica and Dawn, good to see y'all. Yeah, that's really my take on it. And I think that a lot of time, and again, times can change. When you're in business with somebody with the relation, you have a personal relationship with. Times can change things can change, but again, the foundation should stay the same. The goal should stay the same. When it comes to, at the outset, this should be a positive thing. And when it becomes something that's not, or when it becomes something that's toxic, or that has come to an end, or that is influencing the relationship in a negative way, then we need to have a different conversation together as a team, figure out if we want to keep it, we want to drop it, as long as we ain't dropping each other. So thank you for watching again. Really appreciate all of my viewers. Please share the broadcast. Please share. You dig? Make sure you share. Make sure you like it. If you're watching right now, make sure you subscribe. I do go live nightly. It's a nightly show. Every night at 8. So be sure to share and subscribe. Definitely want as many people to be in tune as possible. You guys have a great night, and I will see y'all tomorrow night. What's up, Woman Black? How you doing?